Let's call to order this regular city council meeting for May 14th, 2024. If you wouldn't mind, join me in standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. So, when you're ready, let's take a roll call.
Okay. Counselor Rittman.
Here.
Counselor Caswell.
Here.
Counselor One.
Present.
Counselor White.
Here.
Counselor Wittrin.
Is excused.
Counselor Glantz.
Present.
Mayor Lauer.
Here. All right. Thank you very much. And agenda update, Mr. Ray Young.
The only agenda update tonight, Mayor, is that the request from Emilio Inc. is not going to be on tonight because there was an illness. They got pulled away, so I assume we may see them at another council meeting.
Okay, sounds good. All right, we're going to move on to agenda item number 2, public comment. Public comment on non-agenda and consent agenda items is welcome at this time. Public comment on agenda items will be taken at the time the item is considered. Public comments should be directed to the presiding officer and limited to matters of community interest or related to matters which may or could come before council. Each speaker shall be limited to 5 minutes for each agenda item unless a different amount of time is allowed by the presiding officer with consent of the council. The council and mayor should avoid immediate or protracted responses to citizen comment. Anybody in council chambers tonight wishes to make public comment? Now's the time to approach the desk, state your name and city of residence for the record. Look at that, made it right in time.
Shelby Stephenson, Troutdale resident. I just wanted to follow up with, I was here on, I think it was March 12th, and I brought up the issue of, from Public Safety, Equity, and Advisory Committee, and we were concerned about 257th and what was proposed happening on that road, the narrowing of the lanes, crosswalks, serious things. But I think you guys were going to write a letter to, I think, Gorsick. And so I just wondered where we're at on that.
Yes, the letter was sent. I actually gave Councilor White one about an hour ago.
Oh, okay, cool. Okay, so I just wondered what the response was from Gorsick and what if anything's happening. Because we're public safety.
We'll look into it.
Oh, okay. They'll look into it. That's what their response was.
Yeah, I'll make a note and I'll forward it. I thought I forwarded it to council, but I'll forward it to the public safety.
Public safety, because we're meeting next, we'll be meeting,
Okay,
and I
I'll
thought it was
forward
the
it to
last
everybody
chance to
then.
see you guys, so I thought, oh my gosh, I gotta run to the meeting and ask, so. Okay, thank you,
All right,
that was
yes.
what I,
All right, thank you, Mrs. Stout.
thanks.
Anybody else in council chambers tonight? All right, anybody on Zoom wishes to make public comment, now's the time. Go ahead and unmute yourself and state your name and city of residence for the record. All right, not seeing anybody. I'm going to close public comment. Let's move on to agenda item number 3, consent agenda, 3.1 minutes. March 13th, 2024, City Council regular meeting, and April 9th, 2024, City Council regular meeting.
Move adoption.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
Ooh, seconded by Council President Ritma. All right, let's just take roll.
Okay. Let's see. Mayor Lauer.
Yes.
Counselor White.
Yes.
Counselor Glantz.
Yes.
Counselor Rittman.
Yes.
Counselor Caswell.
Yes.
Counselor One.
Yes.
All right, thank you, everybody. Moving on to agenda item number 4, proclamation for Public Works Week. I'm just going to read it. City of Troutdale proclamation, National Public Works Week, May 19th through May 25th, 2024. I was so excited to see who just walked in. I stopped my proclamation. Mr. Damgan, ladies and gentlemen. Advancing quality of life for all. Whereas public works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, and services that are of vital importance to sustainable and resilient communities and to the public health, high quality of life, and well-being of the people of Troutdale. And whereas these infrastructure, facilities, and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of public works professionals, who are engineers, managers, operators, and highly skilled staff at all levels of government and the private sector, who are responsible for rebuilding, improving, and protecting our nation's transportation, water supply, water treatment, and solid waste systems, public buildings, parks, and other structures and facilities essential for our citizens. And whereas it is in the public interest for the citizens, civic leaders, and children in Troutdale to gain knowledge of and to maintain an ongoing interest and understanding of the importance of public works and public works programs in their community. And whereas the year 2024 marks the 64th annual National Public Works Week sponsored by the American Public Works Association and Canadian Public Works Association. Now therefore, I, Randy Lauer, Mayor of the City of Troutdale, do hereby proclaim the week of May 19th through the 25th, 2024 as National Public Works Week in Troutdale, and I urge all citizens to join the representatives of the American Public Works Association in government agencies and activities, events, and ceremonies designed to recognize our public works professionals, engineers, managers, and staff, and the vital contributions they make to protecting our national health, safety, and quality of life. So thank you very much. Travis Holton, our Public Works Directors in the audience tonight. Thank you very much for the work you do and the work that you've done for many years now, and then all the work that all of our staff do at the City of Troutdale for continuing to offer the services that our citizens not only rely on, but depend on. So you all do a fantastic job. Let's keep doing it tomorrow. All right, thank you very much, everybody. We're gonna move on to agenda item number, we're skipping 5, moving on to agenda item number 6, annual report from the Port of Portland, Emily Bauer and Cherie Temple. I'll let him introduce himself. He's gotta get his own chair as well. We'll try to keep Ed from jumping over the desk.
All right, great. Thank you, Mayor Lauer, councilors of City of Troutdale. We really appreciate this opportunity to bring to you annually what's happening at the Port of Portland. And I sat here about a year ago and mentioned some activities that were occurring that were new. So we get to share some new information as well as some familiar information with existing Port of Portland assets. So I'm going to do quick introductions. One doesn't need one, but I'm Emily Bauer. I'm the Senior Manager with Equitable Development, and I work in the Trade and Economic Development business line team. Go ahead and hand it over.
Okay. I'm Chris Damgan. I work in the same department as Emily as a development manager, and I once worked for this fine city. Happy to be back. Thank you.
Cherie Temple, Intergovernmental Issues Manager. I've been at the port for about 5 years, and I've been on the government relations team for the last year. So I'm lucky enough to be assigned now to East County, so I'll be tagging along with these veterans. Yeah, getting to know everybody. Thanks for having me.
Good to have you.
Okay, great. So let's move to the next slide, please. All right, so discussion items today. We're going to give you an update on where we've been with our East Multnomah County strategy. We want to say thank you to City Manager and your staff who have been participating quite frequently in this effort, and we will share the intent, the purpose, the outcomes, and what we hope to implement moving forward. We'll give you an update on all of our existing assets at Troutdale Reynolds Industrial Park and the Troutdale Airport. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the partnerships. There's some things to celebrate that have occurred over the last year. So next slide, please. So when we think about the port story in East County, I think it's really important to think about how our investments showed up in the community. And conceptually, there's really 3 chapters to that story. Chapter 1 was focused on the growth of the aviation industry. And with that interest, aviation was a clear access point for the Port of Portland. Through purchasing the Troutdale Airport, the port connected aviation to community through training and developing and supporting aeronautical businesses. And as we move into the early 2000s, this is really about reimagining our role, not just of aviation, but really thinking about industrial business parks and how our assets can really move beyond aviation and marine. So industrial campus development started with the TRIP, the Troutdale Industrial Park, as you all know, the former Reynolds aluminum plant that is roughly 700 acres. And this took several years to transform a brownfield site into a productive business park, which is really active today. In 2011, the port, during an economic downturn, really looked to invest in the Gresham Vista Business Park, which is located just to the south of us. And through these investments, the port really brought in hundreds of jobs and increased environmental stewardship and really set the precedent for thinking about Superfund and brownfield development. So in chapter 3, as we think about how our value structures have really sort of been built on these opportunities, we really are leading with shared prosperity. And we shift our business focus to really about investments with intention. And we're committed to bringing new voices to the table, identifying assets and investments that focus on upstream outcomes for people and not just the project. So what is shared prosperity for the region? Well, we look at it, we have the opportunity to build that through the region with travel, trade, and economic development as the foundation for this work. And this becomes the East Multnomah County strategy. We do the next slide. And the purpose of this strategy is to ensure all of our remaining port assets deliver economic opportunities that meet the needs of all community members. It lowers the barrier to quality job opportunities and really attracts businesses that reflect the local economic goals, right? What does this mean for Troutdale? In general, our timeline is set from 2023, which was last year. It was really focused on the discovery stage, and then through 2025. So it's a 2-year process and has 3 phases. Next slide, please. So these really outline the tasks that are associated with each of those milestones. And if you fast forward a little bit, I'll start with a little bit of history. Last summer, we began by showing up where the community is already gathering. We sponsored several events in East Multnomah County, including First Friday. First Friday?
Yep.
Thank you. In spring of 2023, we began and we hired an economic development consultant team to really do a deep dive into the economic data. And they're supporting us in convening the steering committees and roundtable discussions that are being held in May and June. And several of your staff have been assisting in those discussions to help us frame what are the questions we're asking. And so after the engagement phase in June, we're going to shift to what we call an alignment phase. And this is really about the recommendations report. What's coming out of these discussions? What does the action plan look like? And how do we move towards actually getting some projects across the finish line? Next slide, please. And the purpose of this strategy is to help define a vision for the sub-region, right? Not just Troutdale, but Fairview, Wood Village, and for Gresham. And how do we leverage all of our collective effort and investments? This acknowledges that this area has its own unique characteristics, and we need to identify realistic outcomes for businesses and residents. So we're providing that data. We're gonna build a recommendation report to to really think about how we're obtaining funding. Really, how do we bring together these coalition of projects to get funding and implement these priority projects? So this is a collaborative process, right? It's multi-jurisdictional and it requires partnerships to really do these big economic moves. So in the next slide, 6. This just shows kind of the quick recap of the discovery. It was a lot of one-on-one conversations, a lot of coffee, small discussions with staff, with community-based organizations, with Mount Hood Community College, with the local school districts. We did some tabling and we pulled out some common themes. We also are right now in this engagement process. And what we really hope to see is that out of this engagement process is a cross-jurisdictional steering committee that's leading it, right? If the port isn't necessarily leading it, we're really wanting our jurisdictional partners to help us define what the end result looks like. This includes academic institutions, traded sector businesses, and workforce organizations. And so most recently, the team has mapped up a sub-regional asset map to identify concentrated sort of investments. We're reviewing that right now, and we're examining on how we're gonna use our remaining properties to help support those local government economic goals. And the hope is to collectively identify those key projects that we can be well-positioned for public-private investment and for funding. And so the port's role is really a convener. We wanna use our properties. They may or may not have a role, but the port doesn't own this process or the report, and that this is a sub-regional roadmap that will be used by our partners and participants of this process. For those of you that have had a lot of history with this area, the East Multnomah Economic Alliance was once an organization that really led the charge on this type of economic development strategy. They dissolved in 2019. And post-pandemic, there really hasn't been an opportunity to really do that kind of cross-jurisdictional conversation. And based on conversations that we had in our discovery stage, really felt like the port could step into this and really dedicate time, resources, and budget and staff. So with that, we have a couple other things to share. So we're going to save maybe some questions to the end. And then I'm going to transfer this over to Chris. Next slide, please.
All right, thank you, Emily, and good evening, everybody, again. So when you think of the port's investments in East County, we're really talking about three major areas right now as far as where we have property and where we've been. Troutdale Airport, which was the first one, of course, which we've performed several activities on over the past couple of years, including runway maintenance, continued safety improvements, and obviously managing the tenant collection we have out there. And the work that we're doing that Emily referred to earlier in the East County strategy is also going to help us figure out next steps for the airport as well, long-term considerations. Emily also touched on Gresham Vista early on as far as that's an investment. It's obviously in the city of Gresham, but what happens in Gresham Vista obviously can impact Troutdale. For those of you, of course, who've been on 242nd, you've seen Granger. Concrete tilt up has gone up now and is well underway in construction. So Granger is coming online soon, which means we have 2 remaining properties left at Gresham Vista of the 11 to sell. So it's going quick, and that's why we're really thinking hard about our assets. But zooming in a little bit on Trip on the next slide, if you don't mind, Sarah. Wanted to give you kind of an update on where things stand at Trip. And most folks, of course, are aware of FedEx, which has been a Trip now for almost close to 12 years now. We, of course, had Amazon several years ago come online. And then CNS, those are our 3 main tenants that we have at TIP right now. They are tenanted, they employ a lot of people, and they brought up a lot of investment in this community. And underway right now, under active construction, is a lesser known, but a little bit distant, but a very critical project as well. NextEra Energy Resources is building a battery energy storage system, a BESS facility, which is effectively a product which supplements and supports the energy grid, especially as we're trying to make our way to a green energy future. It is a big project. It doesn't employ a lot of people, but it brings a lot of revenue to this community and is really important regionally from a resiliency and a sustainability perspective. So a really exciting project, which means we really don't have too much left. We have a few properties left to the east end of Amazon, lots 4 and 5, lot 9, which is to the west of Amazon. And then we have a small little annex lot, which is just to the east of the airport runway, right where the trailhead construction is occurring right now off Harlow Road. So you can see that's what we have left. And I will tell you, we've had conversations about all 3 of these lots just in the past week. There's still a lot of interest there, and more to come when we're able to share it. Also wanted to point out 2 additional vacant properties that we don't own. FedEx has a property just to the east there, and then Bonnieville Power owns a property just to the west of the grocery wholesaler. So there are still some properties that could go vertical, but apart from our management of this industrial park, we don't own anymore. So I wanted to highlight that. Next slide, please. I'll pass it on now to Cherie to wrap up on our partnerships and where we're going from here.
Awesome. I get the easy stuff.
You get the easy.
Yeah, we have exciting stuff coming up. We are about to finish the 40-mile loop trail, a joint effort between all of our regional partners and ODOT and the port. That should be coming online late spring or in the summer. And we're going to be organizing a ribbon cutting ceremony, and we'll involve all of our partners, obviously you and Gresham and ODOT, and we'll make that a good event to remember for the community. And then, like Emily said, we've been out in East County collecting information and talking and engaging with folks to figure out, what part the port can play in East County economic development. But we don't plan on going anywhere after that. We're going to keep showing up at these events and keep sponsoring these important community events. First Friday and Movies in the Park are both in the works right now with port sponsorships, and we're going to keep looking for those opportunities.
Excuse me, Sherry,
Yes.
do you know what the schedule is for paving? Because I know it got bumped from this week.
So I don't have the latest, but what I heard now is June.
Okay.
So yeah, it will probably be a little later than late spring, which was when we submitted this PowerPoint to you.
I'm looking over Travis, I think he got an email. Did they tell you?
Last I heard, they were gonna be starting some paving tomorrow.
Oh, great,
I don't know if
even
they'll
better.
finish the entire trail this.
Okay. Just so the council will be aware and for the public, that's from Harlow Road north, and then it ramps up and hits the trail right next to our wastewater plant. And then the second stretch is from Sundial Road west all the way over to Chinook Landing. So two significant portions are gonna get paved either tomorrow or real soon.
Yes.
Sorry,
very
Sheree,
soon.
thank you.
No, that's great. Yeah, it's live information coming right at you, so. Yeah, so that's all where the port is, besides working on this East County Economic Development Plan, just trying to be present and trying to engage with the community in these fun ways too.
Thank you, Mayor Lauer. That's the end of our presentation. Counselors, we could open it up to questions for you now. Mike?
Does council have any questions or comments? Councilor White?
I was just curious on that Forest Service property. I know it recently sold. Do you know anything about it? It was like 10 acres.
Could you bring up that, Emily, could you bring up that map of the property again, as for?
Or the zoomed in.
Sarah's can bring it up.
Sarah, yeah, it's in the zoomed
That's
in
right.
Troutdale site. And I think I'm gonna go ahead and let Chris answer that question.
Yeah, so it had been owned after the Forest Service pulled out. The GSA, General Service Administration, held it for a while. It went to auction after years of sitting there, and it went on a very rapid auction schedule. We weren't able to respond in time to consider purchase of it, and it's been privately purchased. And my understanding is the gentleman who owns it is a local investor and has other property.
You know, you mentioned the Troutdale Airport, so it's like, I've long felt that that's kind of underutilized as far as a connection to our town. And I guess, you know, I don't know what your plans are, but you know, I think Troutdale would be interested in helping, you know, with that, and maybe try to make it more of a feature of our town, for lack of a better terminology. That's a possibility. And I was also curious, what is your furthest north boundary of the port property? Does it go all the way to the Columbian?
As far as furthest north, I would say that the levee is the furthest
Levee,
boundary. That's correct. And as far as the Troutdale Airport, I think that this strategy will really help us inform, you know, right now is not the right time to really be doing any kind of vertical construction given the capital market climate. But I think right now having these planning conversations with the community will really help us hone in on what are the types of uses to be realized in both Trip and at the airport. And businesses, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, if you haven't been down there, it's a beautiful piece of land down there. And it's fun watching the planes land and take off, and it's not noisy like you'd think, because it kind of coming in on a glide. It could be a great feature.
Thank you, Councilor White.
Any other comments or questions from council?
Just to like piggyback off the airport, and I don't know if it's underutilized necessarily, or I don't know if it can be, let me put it this way, I work out at Aurora a lot, and that it's really taken off over the last, let's say, 4 to 5 years in the building of hangars, etc. And it seems to be pretty busy. So I don't know, is there a limitation on what the Troutdale Airport, being port-owned, can, you know, bring to the, just in itself, like what can be built there, what can be, you know, who can be brought in to own hangars and stuff? I know hangars are kind of at a premium these days. So I was just curious, because it seems like it's pretty empty down there, and it has been, and there's not a lot of traffic, and is that something that can be grown, you know, to, and that would obviously bring people to the city, whether they're gonna go right out of it, but at least it brings them here. So I don't know if there's a plan or if there's a limitation on what can be there.
Sure. I mean, I think the limitations are really driven by the FAA as to what can and can't be built, and that's some criteria that is really critical and more focused on aviation and aeronautical uses. I think part of it is just finding the right balance and timing for development feasibility, right? Because of the fact of the dollar investment is really challenging to build anything new. So I think there are definitely uses that we need to explore, and we're really hoping that the community and the feedback and the steering committee can really help us think about what could be realized as a big economic development generator for the airport. So there's going to be some time before we can really answer what types of uses could happen there. It's the south side that may not be as utilized right now, and I know that we've had some discussions around could there be an interim utilization of that south terminal building. So we are exploring sort of short-term, midterm, and long-term remedies or opportunities for the location. Does that help answer the question?
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
more to come.
Yeah.
The Gresham Vista Business Park, I just don't recall that being a port property before. Is that something new?
It's purchased in 2011.
I see.
It was originally meant to be a large, it's about 200 acres, and was originally meant to be a large semiconductor site. LSI then transitioned to On Semiconductor, and based on their kind of national goals, they decided they didn't need the expansion. So the port purchased the remaining parts of the property.
In
and
2011.
That's right. And Subaru was part of that new development that spearheaded some of the speculative development on the north side. And then just to the south, there was some additional development that occurred right there along, I guess I would just start. But it is almost fully built out. Granger, as you know, is a Fortune 500 company that's put their new warehousing and distribution and office location there. It's about a 500,000 square foot facility that has some really great sustainability and innovation around automation. And so it's close to being full. There's only a couple of lots remaining on that business park.
Are there other suitable development sites, and you probably can't talk about them, but that seemed like a good thing for us, for the state, for the port, for Gresham, and for everybody, really. And I don't know, is that an ongoing theme of the port? I don't remember. I just don't remember that being part of the port's remit to buy and then develop new industrial properties. The port generally had its land and worked to develop it. I don't know if you have a comment on that effort.
Sure, Councilor Whitman, let me see if I can answer the question. The port, with TRIP, the Troutdale Reynolds Industrial Park, that was a site, that was a super fun site that took quite a bit of preparation for site readiness and getting those tenants to be able to build, the infrastructure of the roads, the transportation. And so that was our first entry point into really looking at business park development. So that became FedEx, Amazon, and CNS, as you, Chris had mentioned. Gresham Vista Business Park came on the heels of that. And as part of this East County strategy, not only are we looking at just the port assets because there's far and few, is really are there other opportunities in this subregion that could potentially be an acquisition opportunity for the port. There are not that many large sites left to do industrial development. So if anyone has an ear to the ground on that, let us know.
We'll let you know.
But having worked for the city of Gresham for almost a decade, I know that there are some locations that could look at really housing industrial users, right? You've got the Vance Park master plan vision, you've got the quarry, there are pockets of remaining properties that could be up for consideration. But again, we're really looking to the local jurisdictions to help us understand and identify that.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
Have you all presented at Fairview Council yet
We have not.
with regards to this presentation?
No, we haven't.
I know their newly appointed Councilor Dennerline, I believe. He's He's a small business owner inside the Troutdale Airport facility. I know he's very excited about the possibilities of what could happen inside those hangars. So it'll be interesting to, maybe I'll listen to that, council. I wish you well.
Thanks for the heads up.
We meet with Jeff on a quarterly basis.
I figured you did. Any other comments or questions from council? Okay. I'm gonna open it up to public comment and give the public an opportunity to comment on your presentation. So if there's anybody on Zoom that wishes to make public comment with regards to agenda item number 6, the annual report from the Port of Portland, now's the time. Go ahead and unmute yourself and state your name and city of residence for the record. Not seeing anybody. Anybody in council chambers? All right, I got one taker.
Yeah, awesome.
I just, Shelby Stephenson.
Go ahead and sit
I just-
down
Do
and
you want to take a
take a seat so we can hear you on the record, Shelby.
Okay. Shelby Stephenson, a Troutdale resident. I just wanted to encourage the airport to be a viable and to continue the airport because my daughter has taken lessons, learned to become a pilot there. And I know of other kids that have done that too. So I really want to see it continue to be an airport. I really think. I want to see us embrace that. So otherwise, I love it, what you guys are doing.
Thank you.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that comment.
Anybody else? All right, I'm gonna close public comment. Thank you very much for the report. We appreciate the work that the port does in the partnership with Troutdale and the rest of East County.
Okay, appreciate
Yeah.
you. Thank you for having us.
Chris, fantastic. I'm so glad I saw you sashay your way in here.
Have a good night.
Thank you, you as well.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on to agenda item number 7, reconsideration of a past resolution, a resolution of the city of of the Troutdale City Council declaring its support of the $150 million bond measure to upgrade levees, water pumps, and natural floodplain restoration brought by the Urban Flood Safety and Water Quality District Measure 26243. Councilor White, I'm giving you the floor.
Long awaited. No, I actually met with the Sandy Drainage District member and, you know, I guess my no vote was more of a, I didn't really like how we got to that levy situation, but the state had a lot to do with that. And, fact is that it happened, so we gotta deal with reality, and I think the reality is that we should support this bond. It's a matching bond, so we're gonna miss out on $100 million by not supporting it. So I'm asking that we reconsider the vote. Randy was also absent when we voted on that. It was a tie vote, which meant it failed, so I think I'm gonna change my vote to yes. That's all I have.
Okay. Let's go around the table. Councilor Ritma.
Well, I've been the city's representative on the urban water quality, flood safety and water quality district. It needs a better name, but that's what it's called, UFSWQD. And I fought long and hard to have the operational funding of the district, and this is where I was representing the city. That isn't this vote. I fought long and hard to have it be funded, operations funded through fees, which was the original proposal. But it didn't happen. Too many, well, you know, there were too many votes against. It was dicey and close at times, but this GEO bond, which is being levied throughout the entire district to fund capital projects that are definitely needed. And I'm speaking, I can't speak for as a representative of the district. I'm forbidden from advocating for or against, but this is before the city council. I'm an elected member of the council, and so I'm allowed to have my opinion and my personal opinion about this GEO bond is a general obligation bond. It is being levied throughout the district, which is all of Multnomah County within the UGB, the urban growth boundary. It includes the flood areas, it includes areas that are not in the flood areas. And it's fairly modest. I think they said $20 a year or something like that. But it's definitely people are gonna be paying for this. It's not free. The thing is, the levy system as it exists now is 100 years old, and there are needed capital improvements. There is federal funding to the tune of $100 million, which Councilor White mentioned. If the local district, in this case, this urban flood district, can come up with matching funds, this bond for $150 million will raise essentially the $150 million from the GEO bond to pay for improvements, the $100 million from the feds, and another $50 million promised by the governor from the state, the rest of the state. Because the flood district, Columbia South Shore, if you want, the area that's protected by levees is important to the entire state of Oregon. So anyway, I am gonna support this, but I will, as I think I said the last time, I would understand it is a tax. Nobody wants to pay more, and I will understand if people don't want to support it, but I sure hope they do.
Okay.
So I'm gonna favor this
Thank you, sir.
resolution.
Counselor Wynn?
Yeah, I was not in favor of it. I think that, man, all these things come before us, and you could probably say, yeah, that's a great idea for everything. And I think that a big thing in my mind is that we have a lot of things for our specific city coming down the pipeline potentially that we're gonna need big asks of our community. And I think that those asks are gonna be more important to our specific city than this ask, and that was kind of my big hang up on supporting something to ask people to vote yes for, to pay more, and then we may potentially have to, within the next year or two, ask them for more money for now specific city things, and I feel like those are gonna be more important to our core than this. And so I'm still a no vote, not that I don't, and more I've done this and been involved and heard things, it's just we're constantly trying to catch up. We're constantly trying to put Band-Aids on things, and I think that sometimes holding people accountable, or districts or whatever it is, accountable to find their own funding to do with the right things is important too, and so that's just what I stand.
Good, sounds good. I'll be in favor of supporting the resolution. The system is old. The demand on it is only increasing, and without a significant amount of not revenue, I apologize, that's the wrong term. A significant amount of funding coming in through this GEO bond, and then hopefully matching dollars from federal and state. Without that, I'm not sure that the infrastructure will be able to be renovated and updated to match the demand that's being put on it. And again, as Councilor Rittman stated, this affects the entire district, so it's not just Troutdale. We'll be paying our share of however they break that up as far as what the payments are gonna be. But like Councilor Rittman said also, I'm not in favor of more taxes. I think a good tax is no tax at all, but unfortunately, we're gonna rely on the safety and the efficiency of this levy system, and if it's 100 years old and it keeps getting older, we're only gonna be able to rely on it so much longer. So in light of Public Works Week, I'm in favor of supporting this resolution to upgrade this infrastructure that we rely on. Counselor White, you already stated your piece. Counselor Glantz.
I'm sticking with my yes vote. I think I'm obviously not in favor of more taxes, but at the same time, this is one of those return on investment kind of things where if we don't spend the money, I think that the consequences would be far more expensive than what we're looking at now, so.
Great, thank you very much. Counselor Caswell.
Yeah, I absolutely support it. I think it's the responsible thing to do, and we need to take care of things before they happen. This is a big way to do that. So yeah, I'm absolutely in support.
All right. Well, I'm going to open it up to public comment and give the public a chance to comment on this reconsideration of the resolution, agenda item number 7. So if we have anybody on council or on Zoom tonight wishing to make comment, go ahead and unmute yourself and state your name and city of residence for the record.
Mayor Lauer, Paul Wilcox, Troutdale.
Good evening, Mr. Wilcox.
Thank you, Mayor. My issue is actually with the resolution, not the bond itself. I've got 3 brief points to make. Number one, I think it's inappropriate for the council as a body to be taking a position on a ballot measure, either for or against. Secondly, I don't recall the council endorsing the old City Hall bond. And lastly, if any individual member of council wishes to support or not support the bond, they would be welcome to submit a voter's pamphlet statement, which I didn't see anybody do. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilcox. Anybody in council chambers tonight wishes to make, oh, everybody left. I'm going to go ahead and close public comment. Did I hear, Ed, that it needs to be a unanimous, or did I make that up in my head?
Yeah, no, it does
Okay.
not, it does not need to be
I
unanimous.
don't know where I got that. Okay, all right. So if there's no other comments or questions from council, I'd entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion if you want.
Yeah.
I move adoption of a resolution of the Troutdale City Council declaring its support of the $150 million bond measure to upgrade levees, flood walls, water pumps, and natural floodplain restoration brought by the Urban Flood Safety and Water Quality District, measure 26-243.
Second.
All right, got a second. Counselor White?
Excuse me. Mayor Lauer,
Yes.
Counselor White,
Yes.
Counselor Glantz,
Yes.
Counselor Ritma,
Yes.
Counselor Caswell,
Yes.
Counselor Wynn.
No.
1.
All right. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for your votes. Thanks for bringing it back.
Spend $300 million.
All right, on that note, let's move on to agenda item number 8. Public hearing and an ordinance introduction adopting text amendments to Chapter 3 and Appendix A of the Troutdale Development Code. Mr. Meyer, you have the con.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, council members. I have my presentation here, so I'll pull that up. It will be a shorter presentation.
Prove it. You've said that before.
I have said that before, and we've had lots of discussions following. All right. Thank you all for having me here this evening. My name is Dakota Meyer. I'm the Associate Planner here with the City of Troutdale. I will be presenting presenting the staff report for the proposed text amendment to Chapter 3.2, Mixed Use Zoning Districts, and Appendix A of the Troutdale Development Code under Case File 75-15. There are 2 primary questions I'd like the council to consider. The first is, should maximum height limitations, dimensional and design standards be amended in the downtown mixed use, the MU1, and the general mixed use MU2 zones? And the second is, should Appendix A be incorporated into Chapter 3.200? Before we get started, I'm going to give a brief history of this. This is work that's gone back all the way to 2017. So in 2017, Metro awarded a 2040 planning and development grant to the cities of Fairview, Wood Village, and Troutdale to engage with property owners of key opportunity sites to identify barriers to existing development codes and to development context-sensitive design standards to establish a more coherent form along the Halsey corridor. As part of the scope of work and deliverable package to Metro for the grant award, each city is required to review and consider the recommended code updates that were produced as part of this project. So we're finishing that work here today. There are two primary requests served by this application. The recommended code updates to amend maximum building height regulations within Chapter 3.200. And the second request is to remove Appendix A and incorporate the design standards into Chapter 3.200 for the Halsey Street corridor. Here is a zoning map that you can see there's a couple of changes. So when this was initially written was back in 2020 and 2021. So you'll notice that there's been code amendments since then that changed the name of some of these zones. The first being in the beige there, you'll see the downtown mixed use, the MU1 zone, was previously called the CBD or Central Business District. And then the general mixed use, which is the MU2, was previously the MO/H and NC zone. In the green areas, that's a little bit further down the road. So here are the proposed amendments, amending height limitations, dimensional and design standards in the MU1 and MU2 zones, and then incorporating Appendix A, which is at the very end of our development code, into Chapter 3.200 for mixed use zoning districts. Here are a couple of maps depicting those changes. The areas impacted are the height limitations for the MU1 and MU2. The green areas would remain at a maximum 35-foot height requirement, or maximum height requirement. So that's standard in our code currently. And the purple and blue areas would allow for an increase in maximum height up to 45 and 55 feet. Appendix A, the CBD design standards would be incorporated into Section 3.211 of the MU1 mixed use, or downtown mixed use zone. So, and if you'll notice in the packet that you all received, some of the numbers are different because that does not currently align with our current code. So as it was written back then, we have to bring those packages forward. So I want to make sure that get that because it could be a little confusing. The proposed findings. These are the proposed approval criteria that will be used by both Planning Commission and Council. The proposed change to the development code does not conflict with the applicable comprehensive land use plan goals or policies. The proposed change is consistent with the applicable statewide planning goals. The proposed change is consistent with the applicable provisions of Metro Code. Public need is best satisfied by this particular change. The change will not adversely affect the health, safety, and welfare of the community. Staff and recommendation from Planning Commission propose that each of these criteria other than 6.1120D are met. The following is the procedure which we will use to consider the request. The request is a Type 4 land use application. Planning Commission's authority is to make the formal recommendation to Council at the public hearing on April 10th. Planning Commission voted to recommend denial of the proposed text amendment to council in a 6-0-1 was absent vote. City Council is a decision-making entity per section 2.065. Notice of application was provided as required by code. Planning Commission recommends denial to council on this action. At the two public hearings, City Council, the first public hearing being today, which is May 14th, 2024, and the next meeting, which is scheduled for June 11th, 2024. The actions for council on the June 11th meeting are to confirm, amend, or reverse Planning Commission's recommendation, enact or defeat all or part of the ordinance, remand some or all of the proposal back to Planning Commission. That concludes my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions.
Can we go back?
Yes.
To the map showing the areas, that one, just so I can okay. So 35 feet in the green in our, what used to be our central business district and now is our MU1.
Correct.
Part of the green, or is that all the green in the picture on the right, maximum building height map in MU1 zone? Okay, now I see it, thank you.
And now if you'll notice where the confluence is in the photo to the lower section, that's actually MU3 now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
So
so
it's
the
not
green on the far
northern portion of the lower map.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
I see, on the other side of the freeway? Okay. So the places that we're looking at with regards to the change are the purple and blue.
Correct.
Okay.
What does the bonus allowed mean?
So that's an allowed bonus within the proposed amendment is if the developer were to come in and want to increase the height from over the maximum 35 feet and want to potentially go up to 45 or 55, there's certain things that they could do in order to increase the height. I can pull that up.
Well, so really quick, so this map on the left-hand side, base maximum building height, MU2, the purple, isn't that the state lot? Isn't that this highway? Okay.
That was identified we worked with a consultant, Cascadia Partners, and during their outreach, reached out to key opportunity sites, and that was identified as a key opportunity site. It's not areas that which the city owns, but it's areas that would like to see developed.
So is there talks with regards to ODOT letting go of that property?
Not
And
that
is
I'm
there
aware of.
applications for development currently in the city's workload with regards to any of these sites?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay.
When these were initially, like I said, like I mentioned before, these maps were done back in 2021 or 2020.
Right.
So I believe they, at the time, were looking strictly at opportunity sites. You'll also notice that Edgefield is a key opportunity site that basically large areas of land that would especially along the Halsey and downtown area that would be great to be developed and have design standards and maybe increased height. The reason for the increased height was during the research done by Cascadia Partners, and speaking with developers, is that while mixed use is what we would like as a city, developers are not finding that being feasible to do mixed use at a 35-foot height. They'd like to increase the height in order to increase the residential aspect because that's where they get more return on investment. So that's why this was put in to the proposed amendments from Cascadia Partners.
It's difficult, and this is my personal opinion, it's difficult to rely on that opinion from developers when we have nothing but vacant mixed-use lots all up and down Halsey, all up and down East County. I understand where they're coming from, but at the same time, it doesn't seem logical right now. So my next question is, are there any applications with regards to developing, let me rephrase this. Is there any applications causing this to be brought forth?
No.
Okay.
So the best way to answer that is the reason why we're bringing this forward is to close out the Metro grant.
Okay.
The city has received a number. I think it was close to 5 to 8 extensions on the grant. It really should have been closed out several years ago. But a full code amendment package has not been brought forth to city council to review. That's the final step that we need in order to close out the grant. There have been things that the city has done and staff have done, taken parts of this, part of that being changing those to mixed use zones is a direct relation from a direct pull from the initial amendments of this is how we can get certain design standards and then create the town center district. So we did that based on feedback we received from this, but we did not bring a full code package forward for review by city council. And that's why we're bringing it forward in order to close out this grant and finish it off.
So one more question, sorry. If we follow planning commission's request and deny this, will that mean that we lose out on funding from that grant?
The funding has already been spent. So this is just the
This is
final step
just
to
to wrap a bow on it.
put a nice
Fantastic.
bow. So the funding was for the research and with Cascadia Partners and their assistance in helping do the outreach. So that was all completed back in 2021.
Okay, awesome.
2021, early 2022, I believe. I could be a little off on my dates from going through and doing the research on this. So this is just to put a bow on it and close it out. The issue with if we didn't bring it to council is then there's a possibility that we never closed out a grant with Metro,
Right.
which means we could potentially never receive more grant funding
Right.
from Metro on other projects.
Gotcha, okay, thank you for that clarification. Any other questions from council? Councilor Rima, thank you for your patience.
No, that, all excellent questions. So we are not obligated to adopt this, or we can accept the planning commission's decision. We don't do that apparently tonight, but we are, and it won't affect the grant.
Nope.
We're
Just
We're just putting a dot on i's and crossing t's.
Correct.
What'd you say, a bow, put a bow on it, so, all right, that's about where I'm thinking I am, is I like did the planning commission adopt findings for justifying their decision, and do we have those?
Those should be in the staff report that was received. It was the planning commission staff report was as an attachment to the city council staff report.
Okay.
And those findings are in there. And it
I
goes
just couldn't
through, and as I mentioned in my presentation, where it's the criteria D that I, through staff, doing research, and then also feedback we've received from the citizens and planning commission, don't feel that it really met that standard. Based on that feedback, even though I feel like it could very well meet the other standards, I think the most important aspect is if it is there for the citizens' feedback, because that is really the aspect of who's gonna be the most affected by this. It could be a benefit for some developers, but until we get to an area that that it meets all the criteria, then I don't believe that it's something that should be moved forward.
And that criteria D, that was the one that, in here, there was one that said this criteria is not met in red.
Correct, in red,
Okay.
yes.
Good, very good.
Okay. Other questions from Councilor White?
Do you have a slide that shows what those properties are currently zoned?
I don't have a slide. I can pull up our map if you'd like. I'd be happy to do that, our GIS mapping. And I can show you what those are currently zoned. I can tell you for the majority are MU1. So I can just go ahead and pull that up really fast here.
It's the salmon color on that.
Yeah, and so here's a little bit, I'm not sharing the screen, that's why. I had it up here. There we go. So here you can see that the majority of this section is all MU1, so the lighter purple is MU1. This kind of little darker shade is MU2. The confluence site is MU3. It's actually the only MU3 section we have within the city. And then the other areas that were also opportunity sites are MU2. And then over here, which there's a lot of focus on, is actually commercial, but that's the Edgefield properties.
Okay.
And also, I think the school owns a section of those as well.
Yeah.
So the majority of them are MU1 and MU2. Specifically, our downtown is all MU1. So downtown mixed use.
So I know the confluence site, we, or the urban renewal area, we decided to go higher in height. And part of that is, because of the soils, they're gonna most likely have to drive piling. And once you do that, sticking at 35 feet doesn't pencil out. So you're kind of stuck in perpetually not developing that property. And I know the peninsula site is where the RV park is. Yeah, and council and TCAP both agreed that should be like executive housing opportunity versus what it is now. And I think the only way they're gonna get there is if someday that becomes 4-story height to compensate for the cost of having to drive piling to build anything there. So just a thought.
And that's the reason I really read through is with our town center plan, the 2040 town center plan that was adopted really through some of the research that was received from this, and in that calls out a lot of the opportunity sites being, the RV park area. And I just didn't feel that what the overarching didn't really align with what the town center plan, given that all of these properties are within our town center overlay.
Well, I sat in on the planning commission meeting and I kind of got the feeling that there was parts of it they liked, but overall, and I even think the staff report recommended not passing it also, so.
And yeah, at the end of our planning commission meeting, there was some positive feedback on certain aspects. And I think that's something that we saw with the previous code amendments that have come through. And that's why in that staff report, I have a little snippet of it here. But if you also read through towards the end, it mentions that if directed by planning commission, staff will continue to take the feedback we receive and then work on separate sections, not a full overarching code amendment like what's currently being presented, but sections similar to, one of the examples I should say is planning commission really liked the idea of having more of a design standard along the Halsey corridor. And some of the design standards that are within the proposed amendments, they liked, but not as a full package. And I think that as staff, we heard that, and that's something that we will eventually be coming back to them with and working with other groups such as CAC about discussing design standards for along the Halsey corridor and continuing to kind of have that small town feel of downtown kind of extended, but also with a nice mixed use area along Halsey as it continues to move west. So that was kind of some of the feedback we received from Planning Commission is some of the aspects could be good.
Well, I think this proposal is a good example of when the three cities collaborate on something. Often Troutdale, even though we're the larger city, we get outvoted by Fairview and Wynn Village, so everything they want makes it into the plan, and our voice is muted when we're in that arrangement. So I'm glad you guys picked up on that, and the planning commission did as well.
Thank you. Councilor Glantz?
I just have a comment. I was in some of those meetings as a planning commissioner ages ago, it feels like now. And I don't think at any point anyone ever agreed on what this should, the outcome of this should be. And it's kind of like, I'm not even sure why it progressed. And I know we kept hearing, oh, council will have a chance to, feed in, but it's over. And we didn't even have any way to come back and say, this isn't, no one agreed. So it would have been very logical to say, what can we agree on here? Like, lighting along Halsey or something. And I don't know. I feel like big opportunity was wasted and taxpayer money was wasted. And I will also say that I just about had a heart attack because I read through this and I'm like, no way. And then I saw that it was recommended to be denied, so.
I'm not gonna lie, I had the same feeling, so. Counselor Caswell, do you have any comments?
No, I don't have any comments.
Okay, Counselor One? Nope. Okay. Let's go ahead and start the public hearing. So I'm gonna open up the public hearing for agenda item number 8, an ordinance adopting text amendments to chapter 3 and appendix A of the Troutdale Development Code. Anybody in Zoom wishes to make a comment during this public hearing, now's the time. Go ahead and unmute yourself, state your name and city of residence for the record.
Mayor Lauer, Paul Wilcox, Troutdale.
Thank you, Paul.
Real briefly, I just want to reiterate that the Plan Commission vote was 6-0. I caught that Dakota did correct himself, but the staff report does read 6-1. And I like to be able to believe what I see in writing, but sometimes I can't. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilcox. Anybody in council chambers tonight wishes to make a comment? Now's the time. The Staffinson tag team tonight.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry about that.
No, it was wonderful. It's great to see both of you.
Good evening, Mayor Lauer and City Councilors Channing Staffinson. And I do serve as a member of the Planning Commission, but I'm here as a private citizen. But this is something that had gone on, as Councilor Glantz just mentioned, for several meetings. And I just want to say it's a little frustrating because the Planning Commission's all commented on things they would like to see changed or edits, or they would like to be able to work on it. And this all just came back in the form of text amendments. And it's really probably not the best way to get things the way that you want them. It's usually a little better if you involve other people and try to come up with a better solution. And there's a lot of things in here, frankly, that are things that I know as a planning commissioner, I'm planning on gleaning out of this so that we can enhance our own code, make it better. But then there's other things. There's things like in the mixed use spaces, you have to have a space that's 800 square feet. Why? What if you have a tenant that needs 1,000 feet, or you have a tenant that needs 600 feet? Why 800 feet? Why is that number? And then the other thing, we already have some issues with parking, but yet what we're looking at doing is if you go taller, you get a bonus and your parking ratio goes down. So you're going to add more units and actually provide less parking. I don't know that that's going to be an overall solution for us either. So I think some of those things just need to be looked at, need to be honed in, and we can make some definite improvements. But I will say that as far as the town center plan goes, 55 feet in the town center, not consistent with the plan. And there's parts of this that aren't consistent with the plan at all. And that's also a reason why the Planning Commission was pretty unanimous in their recommendation for denial. Any questions?
I don't think so.
Thanks, Danny.
You're welcome.
Thanks, sir. Appreciate it. Anybody else wishes to make comment? Okay. I'm going to close the public hearing. A follow-up question? Staff and Planning Commission recommends not to pass this ordinance. Does it also, I read in the pros and cons stating that even consolidating Appendix A into Chapter 3.200 may overload the chapter with too much information. So when they say we don't recommend, they don't recommend either part of it, the change plus the text amendment, or
Correct.
plus the consolidation. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. That was the only follow-up question I had. Any other comments or questions from council? This again is just introduction. So we'll see this again, I believe, on June 11th?
Correct.
June 11th. So we'll have a time to vote on it then, but now's a good time to get questions answered and asked and answered. All right, I think that's it.
Thank you very much, Mayor.
Appreciate it, thank you.
Thank you, Council.
All right, let's move on to agenda item number 9, another public hearing ordinance introduction, an ordinance amending municipal code section 15.12 pertaining to updated state fire code. Mr. Ray Young, you've been silent all night.
You're welcome. Saving the best for last. As the council remembers, a few months ago, Gresham Fire Department was here requesting you consider 3 changes in our code. One was the backyard burn ban, the second one was to institute fees regarding inspections, and the third was to update our code to the current state fire code. Of the 3, you said yes to updating our current code to reflect the current state fire code. As you recall, back in 2008, for some reason that is lost to history now, they named the 2007 fire code as the fire code we enforce, not thinking that maybe there'd be a 2008, a 2009, a 2010. And so we're stuck with the 2007 fire code that is way out of date. Because of that, we are proposing changes in the ordinance that you saw a couple months ago that specifically do 3 significant things, relatively minor but significant, in that 1, the reference to 2007 in our code is eliminated, so it simply says the fire code. Whatever the current version of the code is, that will be the fire code. There were exceptions that we had listed in our previous code. Because the fire code from 2007 has been amended so many times, our numbering system referencing the fire code were not really good. So it changes the numbers to reflect where those sections that we modified actually exist in the current code. And finally, the last change that you see in the redlining edition is that Gresham Fire Department is called Gresham Fire Department, no longer called Gresham Fire and Emergency Services. So we changed the reference to GFES to Gresham Fire Department. Those are the 3 primary changes. Gresham Fire Department is online and they have not changed their display yet. It still says GFES, but that's okay. You know, Chief Durham, sometime you'll have to change that to GFD, but we'll get it changed in the ordinance before you get your display changed on your Zoom meeting. How's that? So he's here if any questions from council.
Thank you, sir. All right, Councilor Glantz.
I have a couple questions. Do we have to, I don't want to be nasty. Do we have to name Gresham in this, or can we just say the service that, fire service in Troutdale or something? Just because I know we have other changes coming up and trying to think, 10 years from now, maybe we want to keep it.
The only thing I would say, and the chief can comment too, is that they are our current enforcer of the code, which is what they authorize. So naming them actually gives them ordinance authority to enforce our code. Quite frankly, as Councilor Glantz, you know, we don't know what 3 or 4 or 5 years down the road is going to look like. We're going to have to probably amend this anyway, depending on whether it's Gresham Fire Department or a fire district. Something's going to have to probably change in the next couple of years. So I don't know, Chief, did you have anything to add to that one?
So the State of Oregon Fire Marshal's Office requires that we are listed as Ray Young said, as the enforcer of the code. So it has to be specified in the code adoption.
Okay. And then my other question is there a timeline on this? And the reason I ask is I feel like some of this could be reviewed and rewritten to be a little more clear.
Yeah, so we're behind in the code, and the information is the same information that the state of Oregon recommended adopting for each of our cities. That is ultimately up to you. That language is, however, adopted in the other cities as recommended by the state of Oregon.
And that includes things like council directs whether or not there's fees and that kind of stuff? I'm referring to
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Thank you for those answers.
Yeah, as you recall from the last time, it says fees, if any. So council was free to do 0 to whatever it wanted to do for fees. And at this time, the council has chosen not to establish any fees.
Yeah, there's some other areas that I think could be cleaned up, but okay.
All right. Any other comments or questions from council? If there's no comments or questions from council for either staff or City of Gresham staff, let's go ahead and open up the public hearing. I'm gonna open up a public hearing on agenda item number 9, an ordinance amending municipal code section 15.12 pertaining to updated state fire code. Anybody on Zoom wishes to make comment regarding this agenda item, ordinance introduction? Now's the time. Go ahead and unmute yourself and state your name and city of residence for the record. Anybody in council chambers tonight?
Good evening, Mayor Lauer, City Councilors, Tanny Stephenson, Troutdale resident. And this isn't regarding a direct change. This is just sometimes when you open the can up, it's kind of interesting what you see. And the question, I just had a question with paragraph F. Business license inspections, any person or business entity that applies for a license to conduct business in a physical location within the city of Troutdale must obtain a business license inspection by Gresham Fire. And a question I had was, so for an in-home business, you're required to have a fire inspection of your home?
I'd be happy to answer that. The answer is no. We do not inspect businesses in residential single-family homes.
So would that be listed as an exception or something? It just doesn't say that, and I'm just thinking about a lot of people have home businesses.
So the fire code does not have authority in single-family businesses. So as far as the fire code is concerned, there's no inspections of single-family homes or businesses within those homes. Now, if there's something else in under the business licensing for the city of Troutdale, that does not bring the fire department into a single-family home.
Okay, and I'm just saying that because I'm not trying to be argumentative. It just says any person or business entity. It doesn't specify like homes or commercial properties or anything like that.
So, really quick, in, what is it? Where am I at? Page 1.4 of chapter 15.12, attachment A at the end. 15.12.020 definitions. Oh crap, where did it go? I just had it, I'm sorry. Under, for purposes of this chapter, the following mean: business means any activity, trade, occupation, profession, or pursuit conducted for the purpose of generating revenue, whether for profit or non-profit, regardless of occupancy type assigned to code language, excluding home occupations. I think that states that it's excluding home businesses.
That would cover that exclusion would cover it.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, all right.
And then I'm also just, I appreciate that we've not implemented a fee for an inspection. I appreciate the council not doing that. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Tammy. Appreciate your comments. Anybody else? All right, I'm gonna close public hearing. Again, just like last one, this is just the introduction, first reading. But if anybody has any questions, now's the time to ask them. Councilor White.
Yeah, I just want to follow up on Mr. Stafford's comments, because, you know, like some of our businesses will do a pop-up business, and I'm wondering, or like a good example is when the smelt come in, I rent nets kind of for community service more than anything, really. And the staff here is really good about getting that business license right away that same day, because we never know when they're gonna open it. But would that trigger the fire department also having to approve that license?
Not if it's a home occupation.
Okay, so that would be considered a home occupation.
unless you have an office.
Okay. Same with like pop-ups, and if someone does a pop-up produce stand, I know Sugar Pine does that a lot during the summertime.
Well, the fire marshal does get a chance to inspect the pop-up because it has to be certain tags on it, correct, chief?
Yeah, that's correct. If it's more than just a 10 by 10 single tent,
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and the fact that is Sugar Pine, which is a commercial business,
So
I'd
they're
imagine,
covered.
yeah,
Right.
they're part of that inspection process.
And they probably have gas or other materials there that require the fire inspection anyway, so.
Any follow-up comments or questions? Are we gonna see this again at the June 11th?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Chief, appreciate you being here. Thank you for answering our questions and taking the time to join us.
thank you, Mayor and Council.
Best way to serve your Tuesday evening. You're welcome. All right, let's go ahead and move on to agenda item number 10, staff communications. Mr. Ray Young.
Thank you, Mayor. I have 5 notifications for you. Number 1, next Tuesday evening is the anticipated committee interviews. We will be having dinner for the committee at 6 o'clock next Tuesday right here, and the interviews will start at 6:30. So keep that on your agenda that we're having an additional meeting next week. But to make it up for you, since we'd only had these 2 ordinances, second hearings that will continue to June 11th, we will cancel the meeting for May 28th. So there'll not be a May 28th meeting. You're gonna have tonight, next Tuesday for the interviews, and then we're bumped out to June 11th. But then be prepared, there'll be 3 meetings in a row because we'll have the 11th council meeting, the 18th we'll have a URA meeting, and then the 25th we'll have the second council meeting. So give you a little break there on the 28th. Third is between now and the next council meeting, we will have our first Friday on June 7th, that Friday night. We're excited about the First Friday coming back, and that weekend is the art festival also. So downtown will be going crazy with artists and visitors, and it'll be a fun weekend on June 7th, 8th, and 9th. Number 4, this week, Mr. Stavinson and all his friends at the TCAB are meeting with Wood Partners on Thursday night. They're having a Town Center Advisory Committee meeting, and Wood, who was the second place behind Capstone in development last time, would like to come and talk to us again since Capstone has stepped back. So if you're interested, you can get online or come down in person and watch the TCAB on Thursday night. And finally, there is no Public Safety Working Group report this month because our next meeting wasn't scheduled to June 3rd. But we are working hard, getting a lot of stuff done, and so you'll get an update on them on June 11th. So that's all I have, Mayor.
All right. Let's move on to agenda item number 11, council communications. Let's go, Councilor Glantz.
Wow, okay, I'm awake. I didn't call first on anything. I don't have a whole lot. I've been working a lot since Randy assigned the what's called EMUCTUC, East Multnomah County Transportation Committee. And from there went to the Region 1 Act, and also I'm on the LOC policy for state transportation. And in every instance, I have been trying to represent everyone, and please tell me if this is not what you think is best, that for state transportation dollars, A, we need more of them, and B, we need to focus more on improvement and maintenance rather than building all these brand new projects. Because they keep setting the maintenance aside, and it's getting to the point it's going to start costing us more if we don't. I've been pretty active lobbying for that. That's my report.
Thank you, Councilor Glantz. I appreciate your representation. Councilor Caswell.
Yeah, nothing new for me.
Thank you. Councilor White.
Yeah, this weekend during Mother's Day, there was a near drowning of 2 brothers, an 11-year-old and a 13-year-old. They flipped their raft in the area they call the chute, which is right in front of my auto. And they were able to self-rescue themselves, but a lot of people thought they were still underwater, including the grandmother, and it was, she was just wailing. And but the good news is they were fine, but it's just a reminder that The lifeguards start in a couple weeks, and it's a good idea to wait for the water temp to warm up. And please wear a life jacket, because it's no joke out there, so. That's all I have.
I'll go next. It is coming up on Public Works Week, so I wanted to also thank Eric Palmer for the work that is done at the city and everything that we do with regards to community development, everything that we do with Public Works. If you see Public Works employees on the street, wave at them, don't honk at them. If they're in the street, it scares them. Don't scare them as they're working in the road. Just wave at them. If they see you, great. If they don't, that's okay too. Them knowing that you appreciate them, it means a lot. So when you see something, say thank you. That's it. Council One?
Yep, our public works workers are all fantastic. Love seeing them as we walk through the parks, and it's always nice to see a friendly face. I wanna just piggyback off what Councilor White said, in that there was many river rescues this past weekend, and whereas it's warm outside, the water is not warm, and that you won't last very long, let's just put it that way. So please wear a life jacket. For all of you listening on this broadcast, wear a life jacket. It is the cool thing to do.
Councilor Rittman?
I agree. Because the water is really cold, even though, May has been nice, at least the last few days. I guess I'll just wish everyone, since it'll be after Memorial Day, happy Memorial Day holiday coming up. And we'll see you all in June. And I move we adjourn. Am I allowed? We adjourn.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, everybody, we are adjourned. Have a good evening, and thank you for the meeting.
Thank you. Yeah, there we go.